Smash Bros. Melee delivered 2 continents of action over the weekend.
And the Mad Catz Tokyo Game Show Tournament shaped the Capcom Cup field.
I'm Ian Barker.
And I'm Efren Salinas. And this is the Leaderboard.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Leaderboard. Efren, how are you today?
Today I'm good. Why? Because over the weekend I saw a metric ton of high-level Japanese T-Hawk play. But now I'm going to take a nap because if I'm not mistaken, you're about to talk about Smash.
That's right, Efren, I am. It was a big weekend for Smash with a pair of events that proved just how deep the Melee talent pool is. Ice and Tech put on a show for the European crowd, but it was Ice who took the win over the Jigglypuff player. Ice couldn't overcome Westballs, however, who earned a spot in the grand final against international powerhouse Armada. Armada would not be denied on the DreamHack stage, stopping Westballs in a sweep to win the grand final. Meanwhile, in San Francisco, HTC's one-day event packed in all the action viewers could handle with a pair of enormous upsets. Mango took an early tumble to Drugged Fox and then MacD, finishing in 17th place just weeks after winning Paragon LA. The man who beat him was relative unknown Drugged Fox, whose Sheik toppled Cactuar, SFAT, and Colbull before falling to Fox player Silent Wolf in a nail-biter. Silent Wolf scored his own big upset against Mewtwo King, putting the Smash God in 5th. The upstart then overcame Drugged Fox before falling to a sharp Hungry Box in the losers final. But it was all eyes on Leffen, who looked to bounce back from a couple of disappointments in San Francisco and dropped only one game in the lead up to the final. Once in the final, Leffen made short work of Hungry Box, taking home his 4th title since CEO 2015 in June. Not a bad performance, Efren.
You know, let me tell you what I like about this. Not the Leffen Hungry Box part. The Tech, Ice, all these names that I haven't heard before, Drugged Fox. I was under the impression that there were only 6 people that played Smash at a high level, and that was it. This proves otherwise.
I could see how you would think that, but yeah, absolutely. One of the most important things about DreamHack London was perhaps the fact that the big names weren't there. It allowed people to show up and prove that they were capable of playing. We saw maybe Europe's second best, obviously Leffen and Armada, who have spent a lot of time in North America where most of the good Smashers reside, took the opportunity to showcase their talent. Over Triforce is another guy who walked out there along with Ice and Tech and Amsa and prove that they can play at a top level. It was a good weekend for underdogs, no doubt.
Ian, how hard is it at this level of play to stay consistent? We're talking about a guy like Leffen.
Yeah, I'm so glad you brought that up. I actually have a graph for our viewers at home checking out how hard it is to remain at the top of the Melee game. Now, as you can see on the graph here, we've got Armada, Leffen, Hungry Box, Mango, and Mewtwo King, and there's a lot of up and down on those lines. We're at a point where, and Scar talked about this a little bit, Mewtwo King popped off against Silent Wolf, and that was sort of an unexpected thing. And the reason for that is because, as you can tell by the data here, it's really hard to remain at the top in Super Smash Bros. Melee right now. There's so many good players out there. One thing that you don't see on this is, of course, Mango's 17th place finish at this event. I mean, going out like a buster, so they say, but even Leffen, had his run at the top for CEO and what Fox, and then dropped down and then finally brought it back at DreamHack. Would you believe that the Swedish sniper dropped 8 stocks total in 6 full games to Westballs? That is an average of 1.3 stocks per game. This guy nearly 3-stocked his opponent, his biggest opponent at this tournament, every single game they played.
And using Peach, a beautiful little princess from the Mario universe.
With those gorgeous little turnips, absolutely. Now, of course, we spoke a little bit about Silent Wolf. Silent Wolf will be on the show later this week answering your questions live with the AMA series. Go ahead and head over to our Smash Brothers to ask your questions, and we may end up reading them live on the air. Or if you want to stop by and ask your question in chat, we, of course, might be able to get to a couple of those. Who knows? He's a popular guy right now. After what he did at HTC Throwdown, he's a guy that a lot of people want to talk to. Now, from the man's game to, you guys got something going on over there.
You kidding me?
Yeah. No,
Listen.
Tell me about the fighting games.
When you guys are done playing with your little princesses, the men were playing Street Fighter. There were 2 big Street Fighter tournaments over the weekend. DreamHack London, where grown-ups played Street Fighter, and the Mad Catz Tokyo Game Show Tournament. At DreamHack London, the UK's Problem X won with his Sea Viper, beating Europe's best Chun-Li Valmaster on his way to Grand Finals. But Tokyo was where the real action was going down. How tough was this field? you had killers like Daigo the Beast O'Mahara, Tokido the Murderface, and E.G. Puerto Rican Balrog, the Great American Hope. None of them even put a dent in top 8. Also in attendance was GamerB in his first appearance since being hired by Twitch as a community liaison, and Bonchan in his first appearance since being signed by Red Bull. The Mad Catz Tokyo Game Show Tournament is fast becoming where the best of the best gather together and get their ass handed to them by a relative unknown phenom. Last year that was Pepe Day with his explosive El Fuerte, and this year we had Dashio with his unreadable Seth.
Now, Efren, I have to ask, for a complete unknown to come into this tournament and beat all these established pros, is Street Fighter completely about luck or just mostly about luck?
It's about lab work and putting a lot of thought into it, pal. In this instance, Bonchan, freshly signed by Red Bull, lost to Dashio. Why did he lose to Dashio? One, Dashio is a phenomenal Seth. But also, it's a question of have you faced this guy before? Sometimes, even though you know the character matchup, you don't know the player you're going up against.
Now, Efren, looking at these results, I have to say I'm not seeing a lot of American flags in the top of the leaderboard. What's going on there?
They were there. They did not perform.
That's too bad.
We had Evil Geniuses K-Brad and EGPR Rog. You know, and PR Rog had a bad hand. He lost in one round to he correctly blocked an ultra, but then let go of block, thinking he was his opportunity to punish, and then ate the full ultra animation. You're like, oh no! So it was a bit of bad luck, maybe a jet lag, but it happens. That being said, Pepe, also the guy who won last year, he got knocked out by Kazunoko. We remember Kazunoko. He was picked up and dropped shortly thereafter by Zevron. Zevron dissolved. These things happen. It's constantly in flux. The tier lists are moving still, even though this game is that old. But it was extremely exciting. There were no American players in top 8. That being said, the matches were so exciting that I don't think anybody has a right to complain.
And I can't imagine anybody would complain after a weekend of great fighting games, Action Smash, or fighting games. We can both agree on that, can't we?
Street Fighter.
Smash. Anyway, tomorrow night, who we got on the show tomorrow night on Best of 3?
So for Best of 3 tomorrow night, we have none other than Evo Champ from Marvel vs. Capcom 3, Filipino Champ. He will be in the studio talking to us about his career, about his playstyle, about being a villain, and also about traveling to Absolute Battle here in Dallas this coming up weekend.
I'm looking forward to that. And as I mentioned on Thursday, we'll have Silent Wolf, the third place finisher at the HTC Throwdown, on our show, answering your questions live on air. Tune into the R Smash Brothers subreddit, the superior subreddit, I think we can all agree, and ask your questions, and maybe they'll get read live on the air. I'm Ian Barker.
I'm Efren Salinas.
And this was the Leaderboard.